All right, excellent. Good morning, everyone. My name is Kate Prohaska. I lead regulatory policy at Discover Financial Services. We have an excellent team for you comprised of some of our expert modelers, folks in legal, risk, and across the company. So first, I just want to thank the Bureau. I think it's been years that we've been asking for these types of innovative solutions, and we're just really excited to be a part of it. And thank you especially to Director Kraninger for kicking it off this morning and for her leadership. All right, so let's go in first. So it's just going to be myself and Raghu Kulkarni presenting. He is our Vice President of Data Science. And then Patrick Haggerty, who is our bank regulatory lawyer, who leads on everything from ECOA to our use in ML. All right, now let's head into the problem statement. Okay, so first we just want to agree with Director Kraninger that she said in her opening remarks, could not agree more, that innovation can better serve consumers. So this is why we are trying to responsibly deploy machine learning models to improve credit outcomes for consumers and financial institutions. The challenge here, as a lot of us know, is ensuring that adverse action reasons derived from ML models are accurate, clear, and actionable for consumers. So some of the kind of sub-challenges there are interpretation, using features that have similar or closely correlated, and diluted significance as well. And then also common explainability techniques that could also yield different results. So this week, and a lot of months before this, we started to put our heads together and released a white paper kind of on point, if you haven't seen it, in the summer. So our proposed solution, which I will hand over to Raghu, is we offer two creative, easy to implement ideas. When used together, help lenders address these issues and provide more useful disclosures to consumers. So those solutions are grouping of model features to provide easy to understand adverse action codes mathematically, and then that's combined with leveraging both local and global ML explanation techniques. Now to our data science expert, Raghu, to explain the details.
Thanks, Kate. Good morning, everyone. So as Kate was mentioning, one of the major challenges with machine learning models happens to be interpretability. And you have seen some bits of it in the earlier explanation also. On the other side, we also want to make sure that we provide meaningful, impactful reason codes to our consumers. So, our solution has two components to it. The first component talks about feature grouping. The second one is about leveraging local and global explanation techniques, and we will get to that in a few slides. But before we get into feature grouping, I also want to talk about features themselves. And here by features, I mean inputs to the model. So when we talk about inputs to the model features, the model tends to seek the patterns which come out of these features. And again, like we have seen in previous presentations, let's take, for example, credit utilization as a feature. When we input that in the model, it might take in a form of utilization in the last 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, so on and so forth. Now imagine these subgroups of features across maybe 500,000 variables or features. By the way, I'm going to use features and variables and attributes interchangeably, so please pardon me. So imagine suddenly you have this plethora of features which are trying to get patterns to get to the final model score. So coming back to the slide, what we are proposing is aggregation of similar model features to provide understandable and actionable credit themes. And we will get to an example in the next slide around that. So why do we want to group? Grouping provides, 3 major benefits. One is a clearer explanation to customers of similar model features which cumulatively contributed to the decision or the model score. The second one is it simplifies the way we communicate with our consumers. Third one, and probably the most important one, is by grouping, it also emphasizes the most important features or impactful features on the top of the reasonings. So how do we group? And grouping has been there, for some time now. This is not really new per se. What we are talking about is really, apart from using business intuition or business judgment, we are proposing a mathematical way of grouping these features, and that is the USP of our approach. So if you can move to the next slide, let's take an example. So let's say we have a model with 9 features in them, and the impact column is really how individual features are impacting, and the sum of the impact column is 100%. And the blue shaded cells are really the top reasons which are popping up right now. And if you look closely, the second reason might be delinquency in the last 6 months. But when you browse further down, there is also delinquency in the last 9 months. And if you see features 5, 7, 8, and 9 are all related to credit utilization in 3, 6, 9, and 12 months. So what is it saying to us? It's not enough just to rank order the most discrete features. It's important to look at it more closely. And if you advance one more things, Kate, we look at the next table. This is what we are proposing after grouping. So turns out that recent credit utilization actually cumulatively, and that was our keyword, that cumulatively actually contributes 30%, and that is the most impactful reason. Similarly, too many delinquencies, and so on and so forth. So simple but most impactful features. Now moving on, leveraging multiple local and global explanation methodologies for machine learning models. Now, if you open up the literature, academic literature, at least especially in the last 2 years, and some of the distinguished people are also in this tech sprint, right? There is a lot of research which has been around recently around explaining the machine learning algorithms. But in general, if I have to really talk about that, we can say there are local explanations and there are global explanations, right? You name it. You have Shapley values, which was discussed earlier. You have explainable neural networks. You have line. You have line sub. You have ALEs, PDPs. You will have as many acronyms as you can imagine, right? For our discussion, what we wanted to do is kind of summarize them into local and global explanations. And what do we mean by global? We mean broader picture of consumers' credit related to entire applicant population. And local is really a focused view of that, right? Now, as this is an evolving area, there are advantages and disadvantages, pros and cons of each one of these techniques, right? Our proposal is leveraging both approaches produces a better information for the consumers. How do we do it? At a very high level, you run all these explanation techniques. You see the most impactful features coming out of them, and then make a call out of that. So what do we mean by this? Let's dig deep. If you can go to the next slide, Kate. Really honing on what local and global means. I'm not going to spend too much time. So let's say if I Google how many parts a car has, it really has 30,000 parts. Again, we might not have 30,000 features in our model, but in most of the models there are a lot of features, right? So the parts could be engine, spoiler, exhaust. But at the end of the day, if you're talking about the performance of a model, there is a lot of components which go into making this car run. At the same time, when we look at globally, tire pressure and tire could be just a small, tiny thing within the entire ecosystem of the car parts, but tire pressure by itself has the power to mess up the way we drive. So that's where the local focus or the more local featured explanation comes into picture. And tire itself has its own ecosystem of performance, rubber, or whatever it is, right? So this is really the distinguishing between global approaches and local approaches. What does all of this mean to the consumer? Very quickly, on the left-hand side and right-hand side, what we did was we ran multiple approaches, right? Techniques. I'm not going to go into the details of what are behind those techniques, but let's say there's a set of global approaches, there's a set of local approaches. And we see again that, and there are more than 6 attributes here with the spacing we just said, here are the top attributes coming out of each of these techniques. But when we take a closer look, as we advance, Kate, when we take a closer look, too many recent delinquencies is seen in various approaches. And if you have to proceed, there might be other techniques, right? Other features like too many retail trades.
We're at 10 minutes with a couple of questions.
So long story short, if we keep going on, we look at both these approaches and use the best of this. So that was our proposal. And now I'll pass it on to Patrick.
So we're at time, but we put this last slide together to just kind of put all the information on the one slide because it's really leveraging both of the approaches that Raghu described. And I think we want to point out that while the math behind all of this is very complex, we feel that our solution is actually a pretty simple, easy solution that provides a lot of bang for the buck, a lot of benefits to the consumer, which is really the North Star here.